Hello and welcome to What Culture Gaming. I'm Josh, joined as always by the great man Scott Tilford. Because today we're talking about Battlefield 5 because it's been something of a rocky few months for this franchise and specifically EA and this game because no one really knows what the hell is going on. We've had reports that pre-orders are down apparently 85% behind Black Ops 4 and behind Red Dead Redemption 2. And now we've just found out that the Battle Royale mode, which we still know very little about, is not being made by DICE, who are making the rest of the game.
I can't fathom
what's going on.
I cannot fathom that. And well, there is some more to pick apart in regards to the general rollout of Battlefield 5, because I'll be completely honest, I did forget it was even happening this year.
I think a lot of people did. I'm a huge Battlefield fan, and even I keep forgetting that it's coming out in 2 months' time or whatever.
It seems to have. I was going to say it's landed. It hasn't landed. It's attempted to sort of, peek its head out from behind the corner, and this is what we're doing this year. And the vast majority of it just went, yeah, all right, fine.
Exactly.
And obviously there was the whole sort of controversy around, like, there's women in the trailer, oh God, and there was the woman with the hook hand and all that kind of stuff. And you can kind of get lost in that if you want, but we played the beta. You can go check out our Twitch stream for it, for as long as it's available. And we had a bit going. Everything's still very solid. DICE's engine, as far as the multiplayer goes, is incredibly solid. But it just feels like they've tried a bunch of different directions, and none of them have any real confidence.
That's it, I think. Yeah. So we're trying to get to the bottom of why pre-orders are down, why faith seems to be so shattered in this franchise. And like you mentioned, there has been controversy, but that can't be it purely alone. There are a lot of factors going on. And I think the biggest reason of why nothing has really landed is just the way EA sort of marketed this game. Like when we played it, I know you weren't huge in it, but it plays solid. It plays exactly as you'd expect a sequel to Battlefield 1 play. Yet the marketing hasn't sort of shown that off. The reveal trailer was very bad in my opinion.
It was all over the place.
Represent the final game. Like it looked like Call of Duty. The contrast was like thinged up. Contrast was like well and truly put up. Like
enhanced.
The vibrant colors. Enhanced, that's the word I was looking for. And it's just not representative of how the game actually plays and feels.
And so that's another thing, is that it's set in World War II. Like they're going for the whole, boots on the ground, old school feel, which is obviously what Call of Duty tapped back into with World War II? World War II.
One. Well, no, two.
No, World War II. Either way, though, they're going for an old school time period. But you look at it, and you look at it in motion, and nothing about the game screams old school World War time period.
Yeah.
Like you said, the colors all everything about the movement is hyperkinetic. The general color palette is very vibrant. Like even when we played the beta, I remember just stopping for a second, and I was like, what about this, gameplay looks like an old school World War shooter? And it's nothing. It feels very nondescript. And the directions that they've tried to take the trailer in, you've got a guy with a katana on his back, which and then, there's a lot of things like that where it's trying to have more of like a Fortnite youthful kind of vibe, like, hey, customization. And I'm like, it's not Battlefield.
That's
really.
where I think the problem arises, because it is like that in the trailer, and yet in the game it's nowhere near that pronounced. You know what I mean? It is very much a sequel to Battlefield 1. Like you said, there is a problem sort of in a way, like it is set in World War II, yet it doesn't really do much so far with that sort of setting. And you could argue Battlefield 1 kind of didn't either, even though that was World War 1. It was still, like you said, very kinetic. You had this really kinetic movement system. You had a lot of weapons that weren't around at the time, and that's fine. But it seems to me that it's having a sequel to Battlefield 1 is fine, a straight sequel. And you can move it to World War II, but EA seem to be really scared about giving players more of the same. They want to sort of present it as like this Fortnite thing that's like down with the youth, and it's like trying to tap into these popular markets, and that's just not what the game actually is.
No, and you sort of, and plus there's already that idea of like this sort of baked in assumption that there'll be a level of respect paid towards an event such as World War II.
Yeah.
And nothing about that original debut trailer screamed respect, or we're doing the right thing by the troops, or whatever, however you want to frame it going down that particular lens, which a lot of people, a lot of the appeal of old school military shooters is to get enamored with that sort of tone. And I mean, you go all the way back to Medal of Honor Frontline, the way that whole game was, presented. You had the choir and the soundtrack, and everything was very respectful, and you got kind of, lost in it. And that's the kind of thing that I think a lot of people go to World War shooters for. Yeah. It's to get, embrace that kind of thing. And Battlefield 5 just has this weird, steampunk, I can't even put my finger on it. It's like certain bits are a little bit steampunky, like the hook hand. I know it was a real thing, but the idea of someone with a hook hand being on the front lines, it doesn't really add up.
I don't mind that so much, because I think Battlefield has already gone to World War II and done that sort of tone that you were just talking about. And if it did that again, it would even more feed into the narrative of what's the point.
Right.
Like if you're not going to do anything different with it, so you can see them sort of trying to do different things, but it's just so kind of like incongruent with the whole sort of
to be
project.
honest, it reeks of, everyone likes to point to the sort of the nebulous, the suits, the guys, the people at the top that are making all these sort of like, well, the spreadsheet says this and this other thing says this. This does kind of line up with the assumption that a whole bunch of executives went, well, Fortnite's good, and memes are good, and like whatever, and they just sort of like punched and kicked it all together, and this is the result, because there's no real meaningful takeaway identity from it. And like even even when we played the beta, like I remember it's more of the same gameplay. It just, I don't know, I feel like it's struggling, and obviously that's kind of come through in the pre-orders, and obviously we're not all mad sexist, so it's not to do with the initial controversy, that it has to have something more to do with the sort of the general identity that it's presenting, or the complete lack of new gameplay mechanics.
Well, because the one big thing they're adding to the game, obviously, like Battle Royale, and the way, if you look at the way Call of Duty and Treyarch have presented their Blackout mode compared to the way EA have, none of them have really showed off like a lot of gameplay, and yet you get a feel of what Blackout is way more than whatever DICE are kind of making. Like Blackout are like, right, we're going to have this map that's 50 times bigger than Nuketown, and we're going to stitch other maps together, and that is something to get excited about. And then you look at the small tease of the Battlefield 5 Battle Royale mode with like the fire coming in.
I was going to say, at least they've shown it.
True. But I mean, we know virtually nothing about it.
And plus, well, I mean, it might come from just following the industry so closely. Chances are, if you're watching us, you're already, you would self-identify as a gamer fan, a gaming fan, whatever. If you're following this like alongside, you're already fully aware that they're chasing Fortnite so nakedly, and they're trying to crowbar these battle royale modes in, like within like a year of Fortnite coming out. And so that's only going to come through in the marketing. Hence the fact that there isn't any, because a lot of them are working hard. A lot of the developers are working very hard to even get a mode like that online. Call of Duty's yet to confirm how many players are going to actually be in it. I think that thing is still in flux. And Battlefield, as far as that goes, they showed the overhead thing of the fire coming in to represent the storm, but that's it. And so you've kind of just got these two, like, there used to be the two titans of the first-person shooter genre just chasing Fortnite. And to me, it is quite, they're doing it very nakedly. It's just sort of, here's ridiculous, wacky customization stuff, and here's the Battle Royale mode, or at least we're teasing that. And as far as the main core stuff goes, they haven't really got anything.
And that's kind of my biggest problem, because like you said, they are chasing that in a way, but the way it is being marketed and the way it is being presented sort of is hyping that element up far much more than the actual base game is, because that is a problem in itself, that it's more Battlefield, but it's still that sort of like deep Battlefield experience you would get from Battlefield 1 or 4 or 3, and you could argue that's a problem in and of itself, but it's also a problem where you have this weird, jarring juxtaposition between these two different identities of the Fortnite chaser and then something that's really stuck in its ways.
Something for the kids.
Yeah,
well, that's what I was going to say. If you focus on just the base game, which we did in the Twitch stream, it's like, right, let's go like proper game review mentality. Is this a good game? Obviously, yes. It's extremely well built, and the teams know exactly what they're doing. But at that same token, if you focus just on the mechanics and just on the game, and you remove the marketing spin, what do you really have? And hey, here's some more Battlefield, we don't know, buy it if you want, isn't enough. No. And I mean, it's not for us anyway, or it doesn't seem to be. So yeah, the general sort of rollout so far has just been so bizarrely mixed.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, because these pre-order things are only down in comparison to two of the biggest games of the year. One that is almost certainly going to be the biggest game of the year. And Black Ops is still COD's signature sort of sub-series. And Black Ops 4 does look good, and the buzz coming out of it, like I said, like Rich has played it. I know he really enjoyed it. I know you weren't all that keen on it, but I think you still enjoyed it. Exactly, but there's a lot of
at it, but
positive buzz surrounding that Battlefield 5 just doesn't have.
No, it doesn't. I mean, we just said this before we came in. Black Ops 4 is trying a whole bunch of different risks, but even in that regard, that generates curiosity. People will still check it out. And for the most part, when they actually get into something like the beta, they realize that it plays very well, and the way that they're ingratiating more superhero-themed mechanics or whatever into the game fits. Like, I mean, they're trying new things, and they seem to be trying them with a level of confidence that makes it work. Battlefield is lacking confidence entirely.
That's exactly it, because there is like Battlefield and Call of Duty are both chasing Overwatch, Fortnite, in that sort of those kind of styles of games, and yet Black Ops is doing it in a very Call of Duty way. They've had their fingerprints all over that, and I think you kind of forgive it more, because it looks like they're trying new ideas if you do it in sort of that way. Whereas Battlefield, it seems like an afterthought, even down to it being an external developer that isn't DICE making that Battle Royale mode.
Totally, and like I said, I think that's where the assumption of the executive mandate comes in, where they've had to go to the number crunchers, and they're the ones who have gone, well, if you do this, it'll sell. And that meant that approach to gaming never works. Ever.
Never, ever. So I guess it's sort of like the lack of identity that's kind of plummeting Battlefield 5 into the ground, which is a shame, because again, I love this franchise, and I think the game itself is really, really good based off the alpha anyway. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you have the same issues as us, or is it something more wide-reaching that's kind of infecting first-person shooters as a whole? Who knows? Either way, though, I've been Josh.
I've been Scott.
You've been watching What Culture Gaming, and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.